Hi, this design diary is going to be a bit different than the last ones, since this is the first time that I'll be telling you why I'm putting a project on hiatus. Combat Suit Mercenaries was a pretty disappointing project, and there's a handful of issues that have made it this way. I'd like to tell you about those issues today and to explain to you why I'm putting that project on the shelf for now. I'll keep thinking about it and I'll keep figuring out if I can fix it, but for now I really don't have that many ideas to reconfigure the game, since I had a specific idea for it and that idea seems to not be working. So today we're going to focus on what those issues are and how I'm thinking about fixing them. Mostly it comes down to the fact that Combat Suit Mercenaries just didn't give enough fun and didn't give enough of the feeling that it should have given. As you know from my previous two videos, I think it's very important for a game to reinforce a theme with its mechanics. And with Combat Suit Mercenaries, that kind of worked, but not enough, and the resulting game wasn't as strong as I would like it to be. And there are three main reasons why. The first one was the combat system, the biggest part of the game by far, which I spent some time figuring out and simplifying from its initial idea, but that still wasn't enough. The system was simple, that much is true, but it still took a long time to resolve every battle, and players didn't feel like they had any meaningful tactical decisions, and this is something that I really wanted to have in the game, so that your every decision, whether it is what kind of weapons you want to use on your mech, or what kind of pilot you hired, or what kind of tactic you used, which was the most important thing in the game, I wanted those to have meaning, and apparently I failed at that, and they didn't really feel like they were different enough to influence the combat in the way that I envisioned. So with this combat, I'm quite happy with what I've created anyway, but it just doesn't work in a multiplayer environment. It would be pretty cool, the mechanic that I use would be pretty cool in a single player game, maybe if a computer was asked to, to control the battle. Maybe in a video game that would work, but in a board game it's just too boring and too simplistic. So what I'll be looking at is how to create some sort of different combat situation, some sort of different combat scenario, maybe less abstract. One idea I have is delegating the combat to this small hex grid board, and maybe that will make the combat more meaty, but I'm just not very sure if that's a good idea just yet, which is why I'm still not really I'm not making any decisions on this front just yet. And since this is one of the biggest elements of this game, if not the biggest element of this game, this is one of the reasons why I have to let go of the project for now, because simply put, I cannot continue this project if I don't have this one major thing figured out. The second issue with the game was the metagame, and by metagame I mean, why do people fight those battles? What does a victory or a defeat in a battle mean? And how it was handled now was you had this board with influence on it, and that influence changed rather randomly, and I didn't quite like that. The fact that you fought as a mercenary outfit for another player for a house, so for basically for an NPC, what that meant was you ended up not really feeling the weight of the battles that you fought. And since preparing for those battles was a very big part of the game, it all felt like you did a lot of stuff to do a little small thing, which didn't necessarily give you the feeling like you achieved anything worthwhile. And this is something that I really need to fix in this game if it is to work. One way of approaching it, which I had in mind, was instead of creating events, creating spaces like strategic positions and strategic points or critical positions, that sort of stuff, and players would fight on those spots and for those spots, for domination on those spots, for conquest or retaking them in a very fluid manner. So anyone would be able to attack a spot and or defend it, and whoever holds it gains some sort of benefit. So maybe I'll approach it that way by creating those small cards, or maybe even putting it all on a board on which you would just be able to pick your battles in a more player versus player way, since I think that I'll have to make players play as the houses, not as just some individual mercenary outfits, but rather as the houses themselves, and that way maybe the players will feel like like their decisions make more sense. So that's one thing that I'm thinking about changing. Well, that's the second thing I'm thinking about changing. The third big issue with the game was that it just didn't flow very well. The turns took a long time to resolve, and it seemed like there wasn't all that many meaningful decisions you took while playing. So I want each of the actions to matter, and I want them to be a bit more complex than what they were now. Now, when you chose the armory or academy options, you went into buying mode and you just said, okay, I'm gonna buy this, this, and this, and I'm gonna pay this for it. And it works okay, but it is pretty boring, and I just wanted to make it somewhat more interesting. Maybe try to award players with stuff, with weaponry or mechs and pilots and tactics after they achieve victory, or maybe just assigning those rewards to specific places on the board, and if you defend or conquer that particular space, you're going to be given a particular reward that you want, instead of just telling the players, okay, now spend the next 2 minutes choosing what you want to buy. I'd like for that to be more systematic in a way. So that's one way of doing it. Would be just rewarding players with stuff for their victories. Another suggestion that one of the playtesters suggested was that maybe you should flip it on its head and start from a full company of mechs with full weaponry and everything, and then you just get you get damaged over the course of the game, and it's a case of whoever survives the longest or something like that. I'll think about it, because it seems like a bit counterintuitive idea, which might be why it's going to be pretty good. Whatever I rework in this game, I want it to be two things. First of all, I want it to have the theme that I wanted it to have, which is the Mech Warrior, Mech Commander theme, and I want it to feel like a game like that. I want the players to have those tactical choices, to feel like their choices matter, to feel like their strategy and tactics matter, and I really want to have this entire feeling of building a mercenary outfit of just badass pilots in their badass mechs. So that's something which I'm really keen on. And the other thing is that even though dice and dice mechanics feel like a perfect fit for a game like this, I would like to create a game without dice, if at all possible, since I'm not a big fan of that mechanic of dice rolling. And so I'll be striving to create a dynamic and interesting mechanic for the combat, which doesn't include dice. And I'll see how I fare. If I fail at that, I might actually try and use dice, but in that case, I'll just give players a lot of options to modify the rolls or something like that. So we'll see how that goes. For now, Combat Suit Mercenaries is going on hiatus. I'm shelving the game, and it's coming back right here. And it's going on the boil again. And whenever I have any good ideas for the game, I'm going to revisit it. Maybe I'll need to play some other games to do that. Maybe I'll need to read about some mechanics. somewhere on the net or something like that. Or maybe the inspiration will just come like the inspiration came for my second project, which is the one that I wanted to talk to you right now. So the good news is that I'm working on a new prototype, and the idea for that prototype came from one of the design diaries that I've done recently on the design process. And there I said something like that you need to think if a bidding mechanic is going to be a good fit for your game about rampaging orcs. So basically that you need a good theme to work with the mechanic, and the other way around. And so this game is going to be about rampaging orcs, and the idea I have for it is a small, quick card game. At the moment, it has 108 cards, and that's it. That's one deck of cards and a small board, which is just there to count the points. And the idea behind it is that you use the cards both as the resources you need to win and as ways of getting those resources. So you've got one deck, and each card is basically twofold. It serves two functions. And so I'm going to be testing that game soon, this weekend, and I'll see if it works very well. If it does, I'll just make a video about it next week. I'll tell you all about it. If it doesn't, I've got some cards up my sleeve, so you won't be without a video next week, whatever happens. But I am thinking that if this works, I'll just sit down and tell you more about the game. For now, just know that this is a simple card game, and again, if I had any goal with this game, it would be that I want it to be a quick 20 to 30 minute game for 3 to 6 players, maybe even 3 to 7 players if I manage to do that. And it should be quick, it should be simple to learn. So a bit different than much different than Combat Suit Mercenaries, and a bit different than Mecharia. We'll see how it goes. I'm kind of optimistic. I'm saying that the game might work as planned. We'll basically just see. Alright, that's it from me this week. Sorry if this video was a bit doomy and gloomy, since really Combat Suit Mercenaries was disappointing enough to make me feel a bit silly, maybe, about presenting it to you earlier. But then again, I still have faith that the idea behind the project is good, so I'll try to rework it as soon as possible if the inspiration comes to me. And in the meantime, I hope you'll enjoy me talking about some other of my projects. And of course, if you have anything to say about the Mecharia prototype and Mecharia as a game, then feel free, and I'm very open to discussion on any of these projects. So see you around, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.